Understanding how scope affects access to variables and class properties and methods can be very confusing. In this video I'll try and make it clear. To code along, open the file index.html from the folder start lecture 2_10. There's a variable called name defined, a function called myfunc, and a class called game. The name variable is defined at the root of the script, so it has global scope. You can access it anywhere. As you get more experience with your programming, you'll learn that global variables should, where possible, be avoided. But this isn't a lecture about good coding practice, it's about scope. In the browser, navigate to the root of your Web Server for Chrome tab and click lecture 2_10 start. In the console, enter name, and the value of name should appear. Back in VS Code, add this console log statement. Notice I'm using backticks, not single or double quotes. Using backticks we create a template string, and if we use $, and the ubiquitous curly braces, you can include JavaScript code inside the string value. This will print the value of name. Then we call the function myfunc. Before we run this, let's have a quick look at this function. We'll add a console statement to print the value of name. What do you think name will be inside the function? We'll see in a minute. Then we have an if statement, creating a variable and a constant. Then we print the values of these to the console. Outside of the function and inside the function, name has the value Nick Lever, since this variable has global scope. Then course and section have the values assigned to them. Now, outside the if code block but still inside the myfunc function, copy the course and section console log lines, switching inside to outside. And let's add in myfunc to the name console line so we can clearly see this is different from the first one, here. Save, refresh the browser, and we get an uncaught reference error. If you click the link, you'll see it is the console log line outside the if code block, where we attempt to display the value of course. This is because the variable course only exists inside the if code block, not outside the code block. It has local scope to within the curly braces of the if statement. This error will stop any further code running in this function. To allow the code to continue, we can put the problem code inside a try-catch block. We use the keyword try, then curly braces wrapping the code, followed by the keyword catch and brackets. Inside the brackets we add an error object. Then we add more curly braces, and inside these curly braces we add a console message that will display the message property of the parameter to the catch block. Save and refresh the browser. You can expand the error to see how we got to this line. We'll learn more about try-catch as we debug our games later in the course. Simply be aware how useful the technique is for difficult to fix code bugs. Now let's turn our attention to the game class. In the mouse move method, add this console log statement. And in the game constructor, add an event listener. This neat bit of code means whenever there's mouse movement, we can call a chosen function. Notice the event name is mouse move. That is the event we're going to be listening out for. The second parameter is the function to call when this happens. Now, immediately after the class closing curly brace, let's create an instance of the game class. Notice we need to pass a name as a parameter. It's used in the constructor. Save and refresh the browser. Switch to the Sources tab and click on the number of the first line in the mouse move method. Now when you move the mouse, the processor will stop at this line. You've added a breakpoint. Hover over the word this and slide down the panel and you'll see that this isn't the game at all. It's the HTML document. This is easily fixed. Jump back to VS Code and back where we created the event listener, add .bind this. Now, inside the function, instead of this being the document, this will be the game, as expected. Save and refresh to confirm. We see the game name scope example, as expected. If we add a breakpoint as before, we can clearly see by hovering over the word this in the mouse move method that this is now the game instance. Nice! Notice the show days method. In the constructor for a game we created an array of days. In the show days method we use the for each method of an array to attempt to display each day. To emphasize the role of scope, we also show the global value of name and the local value of name using a template string. Enter this code to call this method. Then save and refresh your browser. You'll get an uncaught type error, cannot read property name of undefined. That's because the function has its own scope and this, inside the function, is not the game. There are two ways to fix this. The easiest is to switch to arrow functions. Arrow functions have the scope of where they're defined, so this will be the game. If we save and refresh, we now get all the days in the array displayed as expected. Notice also that global name and local name are as expected. The optional way is to create a variable, often called self, and set self to this. Then inside the function we replace this with self. Again, if we save and refresh, now self.name points to the game name and so no errors are generated. Scope is challenging for new programmers and I assure you I'll be guiding you through the possible pitfalls of mistaking the scope as you develop your games. Hardly any games can avoid some use of maths. We've met the JavaScript math object already in this section. In the next video we'll look at some super useful methods of this object that you'll be using later in the course. Catch you in a minute. This video comes from my Udemy course, The Beginner's Guide to 3D Web Game Development with ThreeJS. Get the full course by following the link at nicklever.com/courses.